Hello, and thank you for joining us today for our special presentation of Stars of Africa, a 2019 wine cruise adventure to Africa, including both a land and river cruise portion. To further enhance your adventure to Africa, you'll be joined by world-renowned wine authority Paul Wagner. Paul has a wealth of information regarding all aspects of the wine industry and has fun and interesting stories from his worldwide adventures in his wine marketing business. A much sought-after wine judge, speaker, and instructor, Paul has received special recognition from the American Wine Society as well as other international organizations. Paul is so much fun to travel with. We are just thrilled that he's joining us on this adventure.
Hi, this is Paul Wagner, and I am really excited about going to South Africa on this cruise. In the world of wine, you've got the New World and the Old World. That's the classic comparison. But what's really interesting is that South Africa is actually the oldest wine-producing region in the New World. As early as the 1600s, the British and Dutch who were sailing to the Indies had stopped and planted grapes outside of Cape Town and created what was for hundreds of years considered one of the greatest wines in the world, Constantia. It's still produced there. I'm really looking forward to tasting it. But at the same time, there's been a really cool modern revolution in South Africa, making world-class wines, particularly with Bordeaux blends, and also with Chenin Blanc, which they call Steen. But the Bordeaux blends are really spectacular. You know, Zelma Long, who was the winemaker for Robert Mondavi for many years, brilliant winemaker, is making beautiful, beautiful wines down there. And I judged a few years ago at the Concours Mondial de Bruxelles, one of the biggest wine competitions in Europe. And one of the guys on my panel was the head of the Bordeaux Interprofessional Wine Committee. And we got a group of wines blind that he was so impressed with. He said to me, Paul, he said, I know absolutely these have to be Grand Cru Bordeaux, some of the greatest wines from Bordeaux. And it turned out later, of course, once they revealed what the wines were, they were Bordeaux blends from South Africa. So I'm looking forward to tasting some great wines and meeting everybody there.
So to get us started, to get this program started today, please let me welcome Todd Day from AmaWaterways. Todd is the program manager for Africa, and we are so fortunate that he is here joining us today to be able to answer any questions that we have to present this wonderful, incredible destination. I don't know about you, but for me, it's certainly one of those bucket list destinations. There's nothing quite like seeing these animals that we see the pictures all the time, but seeing them live, being able to stand out on our balcony and see the hippos poke their little noses up under the water, or gazing out onto the plains and see the elephants. There's just so much beauty. We're really, really excited about this program. So Todd, please, we welcome you and we thank you for taking the time to join us and all of our guests here today.
Hi, everybody. I'm Todd, and I'm going to talk to you about the 15-day program that we have in South Africa that combines the bucket list destinations of Southern Africa with a 4-night, 5-day river safari cruise on the Chobe River. And the ship we're working with is the Zambezi Queen, and I'm going to talk about that later in my presentation, but you can see a photo of it here now. It's an all-suite ship, and we do safaris by boat on the Chobe River, which forms the border between Namibia and Botswana. The first thing I want to talk to you about is that the program is fully escorted. We have a tour director. This is Andrew Schofield. He's one of our tour directors in South Africa, and he is a biologist. And this program will combine all your bucket list destinations I've mentioned earlier, a lot of cultural encounters, and then a front row seat to the best wildlife show on earth. You'll sample a lot of South African wines along the way. You'll do small boat river safari cruises, and you'll see a lot of wildlife up close. To start the program, you're going to leave North America and you're going to fly into Cape Town. And we're going to spend 3 nights in Cape Town at a hotel called the Cape Grace Hotel. On arrival, you'll be met at the airport. It's a private transfer. There's no waiting for a bus or anything to take you to the hotel. The driver will meet you, put you in a Mercedes, and they'll transfer you directly to the hotel. At the hotel, we use the Cape Grace In Cape Town, we stay at the Cape Grace Hotel, and it's rated as one of the top 5-star hotels in the world. Here's a photo right now of the Cape Grace. It's right on the Cape Town waterfront, and there are lots of shops, restaurants, museums, lots of activity on the waterfront in Cape Town. The rooms we use are called luxury rooms, and they all have a view of the harbor. There's a pool, there's a wine bar, there's a whiskey bar in the basement, and as you can see up in the top right-hand corner, the building in the orange and red, that is the Cape Grace Hotel. On the first night at the Cape Grace Hotel, we'll have a cocktail reception, a welcome reception, and on the second day, we're going to head out to the Cape of Good Hope. The Cape of Good Hope, well, they say it's the southernmost point in Africa, but it's not. It's the southernmost southwest point in Africa, and it basically forms the division between the Indian Ocean on one side and the Atlantic Ocean on the other side. Sailors back in the 16th, 17th century, this was their halfway point between Asia and Europe, and so it was a site that became famous. There's a lot of shipwrecks off the Cape of Good Hope also. One of the great things that we do when we head out to the Cape of Good Hope, we're going to stop at a beach called the Boulders Beach, and here I'll tell you a little story of the African penguin. The African penguin, there was really no African penguins 40 years ago, but some penguins washed up on shore from Antarctica on this beach called Boulders Beach. There was a family of them, and 40 years later, there's about 3,000 penguins on the beach and starting to drift their way up the coast of Western and Eastern Africa. They're evolving very quickly to their new landscape, and they've now been officially called African penguins. One of the great things that we do on the Cape of Good Hope, we'll head out to a seaside town called Kalk Bay, that's K-A-L-K, and we'll have a terrific seafood lunch. And of course, when we have the seafood lunch, wine is always included, South African wine. On the way back from the Cape of Good Hope, we'll stop in the Constantia Valley, and we'll visit a winery along the way, and we'll meet one of the owners of the winery and sample some wines. You can see a few photos here of the group visiting the winery in the Constantia Valley. And then on the second day, we're going to head out to Stellenbosch, which is basically one of the famous wine growing areas of South Africa. It's in the Western Cape, and we have a wine specialist. Her name is Katie. You can see her here in the photo, and she'll lead you on your way into Stellenbosch. We'll visit 2 wineries in Stellenbosch. We'll sample wineries. Currently, right now, we're visiting one winery where we have lunch, and the second winery is a organic winery. You can see the groups. We also have a fine and food pairing in the winelands. And then after the winelands, we're going to head up to the Table Mountain. We'll take a cable car up from the base, and you can see the cable car in the photo there. And then actually, it's kind of cool that the cable car circulates round and round and round. And we'll spend about an hour at the top of Table Mountain. From Cape Town, we're going to fly up to Kasane, which is in Botswana. And from Botswana, we're going to cross the border into Namibia and board the Zambezi Queen. Once we get on the Zambezi Queen, we're going to spend 4 nights, 5 days on the ship. It's an all-suite ship. There's 3 different levels of, or 3 standards of accommodation on the ship. We'll do morning and afternoon safaris on smaller boats. We'll visit a local village. We'll also do a day trip into the heart of Chobe National Park. During your downtime, you can go bird watching, fishing, just hanging out on the top deck. There is a small splash pool. And while you're on the ship, complimentary South African wine, local beer, and local spirits is served at any time. And we have free Wi-Fi on board. Granted, this is a very isolated destination, so Wi-Fi can be a bit sporadic. It's usually much better at night than it is during the day. One of the best things about being on the ship is the crew. The crew is local. They're from Namibia, and they actually don't sleep on the ship at night. They go back to a camp or to villages along the river, and then they come back on each day at 6 a.m. The captain, the engineer, cruise managers, they all stay aboard the ship. Just wanted to show you some of the crew that we see. They're always smiling, and when people leave the cruise, they say the highlight of the trip, yes, it's supposed to be all the animals, but the crew also rates just up there with the animals. The suites in the Zambezi Queen, they're all air-conditioned, central air. There's 3 levels. They range from 215 square feet up to 300 square feet. There are no televisions in the rooms, and because basically your television is the landscape that you're looking at, and most people spend a lot of time on the upper deck. You can drink the water on the ship, but usually we just recommend that you drink the bottled water. All the rooms have showers. There's no baths, just showers. All the beds are king size, and they can be split into twin beds. The food is basically great food. The chef is local, and it's mostly African and continental cuisine. So they combine the foods, and the food is pretty much, it'll cater to all tastes. If you're a vegetarian, no problem. If you're gluten-free, no problem. If you don't eat seafood, no problem. They're able to cater to your tastes. There's a photo here of the restaurant and sort of the morning or afternoon snacks that they have in the restaurant. Get a menu every night. You just order from the menu. There's a bar. The bar opens in the morning and is open until about 10 o'clock at night or until the last people go to bed. And again, local drinks, spirits, wine, beer are all included in the price. Premium drinks, there is a charge. There's a photo of the lounge. I was just on the ship maybe about 7 weeks ago, and just sitting on the couch and looking out at the scenery and the wild landscape, it's just so relaxing, just amazing. You feel like you're in a different world, and if you need to calm down, this is the place to go. In the evenings, we do have presentations. We talk about Namibia. We'll talk about the wildlife, different activities each night. It really depends on each group what to talk about. This is a wine departure. We'll probably have a speaker on talking about the local wines. And here's the upper deck where you can see the splash pool and the Chobe River. To the left is Botswana, and to the right is Namibia. There is a small gift shop on board, and there's knickknacks, trinkets, and so on that are locally made and brought on board. They also sell hats, polo shirts. Usually the pottery and the trinkets are the most popular with guests. The safaris on board, they're done in smaller boats, and they're each led by a naturalist guide. Each safari, you get on these smaller boats. They're about 2 to 3 hours long, and you're exploring the tributaries and waterways of the Chobe River. Again, it's 2 to 3 hours for each safari. Some people say, well, there are restrooms also on these smaller boats, so you don't need to worry about that. You can see the Zambezi Queen in the background. This photo here with the crocodile and egret was actually taken by a guest about 2 months ago. Here's a good photo of the safaris that we do in the smaller boats. So they hold anywhere from 8 to 12 people. There are several boats that we have, so you split up the group. And the idea is that you get up close to the animals, right up to the shoreline. So it's an amazing presentation. You can sit on the top of the roof if you like, and as I said earlier, there is a restroom on each boat, and if you feel like having beer or wine while you're doing your safari, it'll be served. The other photos here are the giraffes, some fishing. I just saw recently on the National Geographic program that the largest, they never knew this in the past, but the largest zebra migration in the world takes place in Chobe National Park. And so you'll see a lot of zebras while you're in Chobe. Here are some of the other wildlife you need: the water buffalo, the hippos, which are the most dangerous animals in the world. Lots of elephants. There are more elephants in Chobe National Park than found anywhere else in the world in terms of density. We'll also visit a local village, and as a AmaWaterways guest, we do contribute to the village to help them. We've donated, we found solar power for the village so they can warm up their water. We've bought little vehicles to send them to school. So it's a good cause to go, and you'll learn more about the life of the local village. Here's a map of the area that we cruise along. This is the Chobe River that I'm circling here. The cruise is not like a cruise in Europe where every night is a new port of call. We cover an area of about 35 square kilometers of the Chobe River, and we're searching different areas of the river during the day. At night, the ship actually ties up to a buoy or a wharf. It can't sail after 6 o'clock at night. And then each day we head out on different safaris. You can see Zambia to the right, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia, and this is called the Four Corners of Southern Africa. On the cruise, we're going to head about 90 miles to the east, and we're going to go to Victoria Falls, again, another bucket list destination, and we're going to spend 2 nights at Victoria Falls. And again, I should mention, all the hotels that we stay at have Wi-Fi, and it's complimentary. While we're at Victoria Falls, we'll do a walking tour, we'll have a cocktail reception aboard a train, and we'll also do a cruise on the Sundowner Cruise or Sunset Cruise on the Zambezi River. The hotel we stay at is a beautiful Victoria Falls hotel. It was built back in 1909. It was built for the railway heading through, they were constructing in southern Africa. The rooms that we stay in are called the stable wing rooms up on the left-hand side. These are upgraded rooms. They have standard rooms, deluxe rooms, and then they have what they call the stable wing. So we're staying in a much higher category. I suppose it was the stable wing where the horses at one time used to stay. The setting of the Victoria Falls Hotel is spectacular. You can see the pool on the left-hand side, and from the courtyard, you can look out over to Victoria Falls Hotel and the bridge. One of the great things that we do while we're in Victoria Falls is that we'll get on an old locomotive steam train, and we'll have a cocktail reception and a wine presentation on the steam train. It's a private car, and we'll head out to the Victoria Falls Bridge. You can see the train on the right-hand side, and this is during sunset. And what's really great is the bridge forms the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe. We're staying on the Zimbabwe side, and we're going to spend a few hours out on the bridge, watch the sunset, and you can actually get off the train and walk on the bridge. We have our wine expert on board the train, and she'll come and do a presentation, different topics about South African wines. We'll also do a walking tour of Victoria Falls. You will get wet, so I always recommend you bring waterproof shoes or sandals, and we'll provide rain ponchos for you. Also, on one of the nights, we'll do a private river cruise on a boat called the Zambezi Royal, and we'll head up and down the Zambezi River, and lots of wildlife in the river, hippos, water buffalo, and we'll have a presentation about David Livingston on board, as well as wine, beer, and local spirits. After the Zambezi River cruise, the Sunset Cruise, we'll head to the Jungle Junction, which is part of the Victoria Falls Hotel, and we'll watch a presentation given by the locals, and have it's really a beautiful gourmet buffet dinner at the Jungle Junction, which is located again at the Victoria Falls Hotel. From Victoria Falls, we're going to head to Johannesburg, and people say, well, why do you go to Johannesburg? 10, 15, 20 years ago it was a dangerous city, but the city has come through a renaissance, and probably in the last 7 to 9 years and so, the city has changed. And it's got a thriving downtown area now, an art scene, and restaurants. So we used to spend one night in Johannesburg, but the guests kept asking we need another night. So now we do 2 nights in Johannesburg. We stay at a beautiful hotel called the Fairlawns Boutique Hotel. It's an all-suite hotel. Every room has a different design. You can see the outside of the hotel on the bottom left-hand side. The restaurant, we have a beautiful dinner in the restaurant. The lobby has a piano. The hotel is in a park-like setting in a Stanton neighborhood of Johannesburg. And the hotel also has the highest-rated spa in Johannesburg. So in Johannesburg, what we're going to do is head downtown and see the downtown area of Johannesburg, where the art scene is now thriving. And from there, we're going to head out to Soweto. And Soweto is a township in, it stands for Southwest Town, or Sowetos. And it's a township that saw the uprising for the apartheid back in the 80s and 90s. And we're going to visit a youth program, community center, and school. And the fellow up there on the right-hand side, I met him a couple of years ago when I was looking for something to do and with our groups in Soweto. And as I was speaking to him, he was telling me how he's running the program, and where he raises his money and what he's doing for the children and stuff. And he said, after an hour, I've got to run. I go, where are you going? He goes, I'm flying to Atlanta. And I go, why are you going to Atlanta? He goes, well, I've never been on a plane, but I'm nominated for CNN Hero of the Year Award. So he left. He flew to Atlanta. He didn't win, but it was a thrill for him to even get on an airplane. I asked him if there's anything we could really donate to the school or to the community center. He goes, what we need are like umbrellas, and so kids go to school when it's raining, otherwise they stay home, and black shoes for the uniforms. From Soweto, we'll head over to Alina, and Alina, again, this is in a local restaurant that it's not a restaurant, it's her home, and she converted her garage into a local restaurant. She's become her own businesswoman, and so she'll serve a home-cooked meal in the garage that she's renovated into a restaurant. And her husband comes out and he plays the guitar. It's pretty authentic, and it's good to see the entrepreneurship going on in Soweto. From Johannesburg, we're going to head out to Kruger National Park. We fly to Kruger Park. It's about an hour outside of Johannesburg. And we're going to spend 3 nights out there doing a morning and afternoon safari, we stay in 2 luxury lodges. And you have a choice of which lodge you want to stay in. And I'll tell you a little bit about these lodges in 1 second here. There are 2 lodges, Tinswalo Safari Lodge or Makiani Game Lodge. Both of them are 5-star luxury suites. You have morning and afternoon safaris. Every seat in safari vehicles is a window seat. All your meals are included. All your drinks are included. Complimentary Wi-Fi. And the lodges are in private reserve, so the likelihood of ever seeing any other safari vehicles is not high. The first lodge I'll show you is the Tinswalo Safari Lodge, and it actually has 6 suites and then a 2-bedroom suite. Each suite has a private plunge pool. They're not heated. The suites are about 750 square feet inside. Again, morning and afternoon safaris. All your meals are included. Your Wi-Fi is included. It's very small and intimate, and the lodge overlooks a dry riverbed, but when it rains, the animals come down to the river. And if you look in the bottom left-hand side, you can see after a recent rain, the elephants have come up to the lodge. At Makiani Game Lodge, the lodge has 7 suites. They're oversized suites. They're about 1,500 square feet as opposed to 750 square feet at Tinswalo. The difference is these suites don't have private plunge pools, and a lot of people want their own private pool. However, there is a pool up at the main lodge, and you can see that in the bottom left-hand side, and it overlooks an open field, and at the other side of that open field is a water pool full of hippos. So if you're having breakfast or dinner and so on, often you'll hear the hippos grunting in the background. The flights that we use within South Africa are all on jet airlines or jet planes, South African Airways, South African Express. They're not small bush planes. The maximum luggage you can bring on board is 44 pounds, and if you go over 44 pounds, then they'll charge you extra. The flights between all the cities are not long, anywhere from 1.5 to 2 hours. So that's it for my presentation for South Africa. It's a once-in-a-lifetime trip, and probably it'd be the only time you head down there. So it's hopefully you'll take advantage of coming down and seeing Southern Africa. So, KK, do you have any questions or anything that you would like me to answer?
Thank you, Todd. Well, I know I certainly am ready to go right this minute. I can't wait. I'm so excited about this trip and all the wonderful things that everyone is going to see. There are a few questions that have come across the chat box as you were presenting. The first question is, can you tell us a little bit about visas that are required to go to Africa?
Good question. So, yes, you do need a visa for the country of Zimbabwe. However, you get the visa at the border. You don't have to get it in advance. The whole group will get it at the border. The cost of the visa for U.S. citizens is $30, and for Canadian citizens, it's $75. What's also important about visas, on this trip, you must have 6 empty pages in your passport, consecutive pages. So before you sign up for this trip or check your passport several months before you're leaving, look at and make sure you've got enough pages. If you don't, you'll have to get a new passport. And also, it's really important that your passport doesn't expire within 6 months of returning back from South Africa.
Great points. Thank you for that. Also, I see here someone's asking, are there any special medications or shots needed to experience this trip?
On this trip, there's nothing mandatory to take, no shots. You would just check with your doctor to make sure you're updated on your standard, immunization shots, tetanus, and so on. In terms of medicine, you are going into malaria zones. The malaria zones are Chobe, Victoria Falls, and Kruger National Park. So I would recommend that you see your doctor for a malaria prescription. Malaria medication has changed a lot over the last several years, and they have a new one out called Malarone, and you only have to take it once a day, and they have a lot less side effects than the one medicine they used to have back in the 70s and the 80s.
That's great to hear. The other question that came across here is, how many guests are there in the group?
So there are 14 suites on the ship, so the maximum amount of guests that we can have is 28 guests, 2 people to a room. I guess, of course, you can have a single in a room also. So no more than 28 guests. You have a tour director with you from day 1 when you arrive in Cape Town all the way through to day 12 in Johannesburg. And then once you leave Johannesburg to go to Kruger, a tour director will leave you, but you'll be met in Kruger with a specially assigned safari guide for the AmaWaterways group.
That's wonderful. Well, I think those are all the questions that we can make some time for today. For all of you who have sent in additional questions, I encourage you to watch your email because we'll make sure that we get all of those answered to you by email. And, of course, as you heard from Todd, there are only 28 guests on this program. And I'm thrilled to tell you that there are actually only 6 rooms left. So there's room for 12 passengers, and I would encourage you to, of course, call our center right away. Well, thank you again, Todd, and thanks to all of you who have placed all those questions. There are some great questions in the chat box, so we're going to make sure that we review all of those. And, of course, it's really important to us, too, that you know who you're working with. As I mentioned at the very beginning, I also want to let you know that there's a whole team of professionals that you're going to be working with. So when you call us, you're going to talk to our exclusive wine team. And our wine team, they are true travel professionals who are able to assist you with any aspect of your vacation planning. Most importantly, we want to make sure that you don't get left behind. There are only 6 staterooms still available on this exclusive program. And, of course, they will sell quickly. So to make sure that you are not left behind, please give us a call. You can either call or email us. The telephone number, of course, is toll-free 1-877-651-7447 or wineclub@cruiseshipcenters.com. Either way, please make sure to mention that you were here on this program with us today called The Stars of Africa. And that way we'll make sure that one of our wine crew specialists answers any questions that you have and checks availability on the staterooms that are still remaining. So again, we look forward to assisting you. We want to thank you from all of us at Expedia Wine Club Cruises. May you sip, savor, and explore with wine in hand and in heart. Thank you again for joining us. We look forward to speaking with you and assisting you with your wine adventures.